With the help of our viewers, we've been working on our sailboat from top to bottom here in Guatemala. Now our time is up and we're getting ready to leave.
Ready to go, Robbie?
Yes, ready to go.
Some weird knots.
Yeah, we.
Every new place that we visit has a complex history. Here in Guatemala, hidden amongst the lush jungle and the winding river, it was easy to fail as temporary guests to see the stories of all the people who fought for a good life and freedom in this land. I wanted to learn a little more, so I explored some historical footage and information that isn't commonly found in everyday media.
The tiny Caribbean coffee republic of Guatemala.
Years ago, the working class people of Guatemala, the farmers, the laborers, the indigenous communities, they organized for better pay, for land to grow their own crops, and for social programs to lift their families out of poverty. But, like in many parts of the world,
this land, as you see on the map, extends from Mexico on the north, includes Guatemala and Honduras from a place we call Banana Land.
Their fight wasn't just against powerful corporations, the banana giants and the mining interests, for example, but also against the US government, who saw the growing social movement of the Guatemalan people as a threat. United Fruit Company controlled most of Guatemala's land in the year 1950.
Fast white steamships travel across the Caribbean with cargoes more valuable than pirates' gold. Bananas are a favorite breakfast fruit in every home.
With annual profits in the tens of millions of US dollars,
great care is taken to see that the bunches are clean before they leave the plantation.
essentially making twice the revenue of Guatemala's government. They were essentially more powerful than the state itself.
Even building a railroad to haul bananas through this tropical country is a story in itself.
In November 1950, the Guatemalan people elected President Jacobo Arbenz, a leader who promised to redistribute unused farmland from the American corporations like United Fruit Company to rural workers. In 1952, the land reform law was enacted, and 500,000 people, roughly 1/6 of the nation's entire population, who had been landless since the Spanish conquest, were granted land, leading to a sharp rise in agricultural output. Additionally, in 1953, citizens of Guatemala were provided with over $3 million of loans, nearly 90% of which were repaid by the year 1954. Apparently, the social revolution was going too well for Guatemalans.
The pendulum swung very far left with the election in 1950 of Colonel Jacobo Arbenz as president. He confiscated the lands of the wealthy and filled his government with communists. He became, in local and American eyes, a menace. So the American government, through the CIA, made an alliance with Arbenz's opposition, and as of that moment, he was doomed.
In 1954, the CIA backed a coup to overthrow Arbenz, installing a military regime instead. Fearing Soviet influence and communism in Latin America, President Eisenhower approved of Operation PB Success.
The replacement for Colonel Arbenz was Carlos Castillo Armas, the entry backed by the USA. He arrived in the American ambassador's plane. Within about a month, there was little trace of the Marxist innovations of Colonel Arbenz.
What followed then were decades of brutal crackdowns on anyone organizing for labor rights, indigenous land claims, and any sort of resistance. Those deemed involved in organizing risked being labeled communists or terrorists, and they were targeted. Disappearances began, and then death squads tore through rural villages as US-funded forces killed and tortured tens of thousands, many of them indigenous Mayan people. Many Guatemaltecas remember. The river remembers by carving paths through rock and feeding roots and carrying stories downstream. Today, it still flows past villages where fishermen cast nets just as their grandparents used to, even as foreign mines poison tributaries and indigenous people struggle for their land. Guatemala remains among the world's most dangerous countries for land defenders, and here we float past. Sailing isn't about changing the wind. It's about learning to use it and move with it. The quiet art of resisting, tensioning the right lines, harnessing the available power while surrendering to what we can't control. We heard a rumor recently that shifting sediment caused this part of the river to become very shallow, but our depth sounder showed that it was still reasonably deep, going around the bend. Somewhere along the way, the river gave way to the sea. Becoming a little too salty to be called a river anymore. And here we sorted out our paperwork and cruising permit to check out of this country that we'd called home for several months. Other new arriving sailors were being visited by customs, immigration, and the harbor master's boat to enter the country. Just one final hurdle remained, passing the shallow bar as time ran out with the falling tide. It's a tight squeeze to get in and to get out where the river meets the sea, with generally only about 20 or 30 centimeters of water under our keel, even at high tide, and only about 10 centimeters to spare in some spots. With our insufficient engine power, we really didn't want to get stuck. So, as usual, it was a relief to succeed.
Check in, check out.
We look forward to seeing your lush mountainsides again, Guatemala, when the sea grows rough and the hurricane season returns. We might seek shelter in your calm river once more. This beautiful place with a distressing history taught us so much about resistance, resilience, and a people who endured genocide.